Welcome to Feminine Systems podcast, where we not only heal or empower women, we also reimagine systems around her. I'm Dr. D, an integrative gynecologist, an author, and an entrepreneur. We are always taught to fear the word cancer, but not taught to understand it. That's why in the Feminine System podcast, the past 3 episodes, we did talk about all the cancers which were very common in women and how their prevention was. In women, cancer often doesn't shout. It brews in silence, thrives in parts of us that were never spoken, like breasts, cervix, the womb, and the ovaries. The 5 most common cancers that haunt the female body are: the most common is breast cancer, followed by cervical cancer, which is caused by HPV. And a very important preventable cancer, endometrial cancer. This is rising today in the modern women because of increase in PCO and obesity. Ovarian cancers, which is very silent with no early detection. They come very late stages. Colorectal cancers are now rising in urban India, which were a disease of the Western world. Why? Because of the bad lifestyle and diet, which disrupts the microbiomes. Today, we are going to talk about what inflammation is. This is the common thread, though the cancers are all different at different locations of the body. And the most common ones in a woman are mostly reproductive cancers. And how this inflammation, which is a common thread, connects all these cancers. We think of inflammation as swelling or redness, but at its root, inflammation is the body's alarm system, a heat that rises when it's under attack. But what happens when the alarm doesn't stop ringing? That is chronic inflammation. The body is constantly fighting. And what causes the chronic inflammation? Definitely sleep, food, diet all play a major role in causing this chronic inflammation. This is recognized as one of the leading drivers of cancer, especially in women. From what you eat, to how much you sleep, to the unspoken grief you carry within you, everything feeds or cools the fire. Modern research has identified certain foods and dietary patterns that consistently trigger inflammation across diverse populations. These pro-inflammatory foods are typically high in refined sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial additives, or heavily processed, or we call it as ultra-processed. Regular consumption can lead to elevated levels of inflammatory markers. Now we measure them in blood tests, something called C-reactive protein or the CRP, interleukins. They are all heightened, and this risks an individual to develop chronic diseases. In contrast, people who ate anti-inflammatory diets generally are associated with lower inflammation. What are processed foods? What are ultra-processed foods? Processed foods are almost all the foods in your kitchen, basically. Just take your rice and atta, your regular milk, which comes in a packet form. Everything is processed. A tea powder, coffee, everything is processed. But they kind of have the original state and of the ingredient is kept intact, just to improve shelf life and to kind of consume. We process most of the foods. Like the methods followed are boiling, fermenting, drying, freezing, salting, pickling, canning, and pasteurization. So these foods still retain their basic structure and are usually made from real foods. Ultra-processed foods, on the other hand, are industrial formulations made mostly or entirely from substances extracted from foods or synthesized in the laboratories. They are typically containing added sugars, emulsifiers, artificial flavors, colorings, stabilizers, preservatives. Most of the time they are in a different form. They are made for convenience, long shelf life, and of course they taste amazing. They're made for hyperpalatability, meaning you crave for more. These foods are designed to replace home-cooked meals, and often they are linked with maximum inflammation. In India, common examples of packaged foods are the bhujiyas, the namkeens, any baked snacks. They're made from refined maida, mass-produced sweets, and even cornflakes, muesli, what we consider them as healthier breakfast, are really ultra-processed foods. These foods are engineered to be hyperpalatable. A large cohort study in France found that individuals consuming most ultra-processed foods had significantly high levels of inflammatory markers in their blood and a 28% greater risk of cardiovascular disease compared to those eating less ultra-processed foods. Reviews on ultra-processed foods conclude that these products contribute to systemic inflammation that underpins most of the chronic diseases. Researchers emphasize that the Western-style pattern of processed food consumption is a key driver in inflammation, and most of the diseases, the chronic diseases, cancers, even autoimmune diseases. Processed foods can provoke inflammation through multiple mechanisms. They often cause rapid blood sugar spikes due to refined starches and sugars added maltodextrin, high fructose corn syrup in them. This induces an immune responses. They tend to alter the gut microbiome, very importantly, which is detrimental, which causes dysbiosis and a leaky gut that allows these inflammatory endotoxins to go into the bloodstream. So what happens? These pro-inflammatory additives and oxidized products from processing, these all enter our bloodstream, which causes again inflammation. Over time, what happens? Regular intake of this kind of foods keeps the body's immune system in a state of heightened alert, producing excessive cytokines. They are again inflammation. This contrasts with diets based on whole foods, whole grains, unprocessed foods like vegetables, which are associated with a lower inflammation. Let us take cervical cancer for example. We did an elaborate podcast on cervical cancer on episode 5, which is caused by HPV. Of course, yes. But did you know chronic inflammation in the cervix makes it easier for HIV to thrive, mutate, and go undetected? Poor vaginal microbiome, repeated infections, all increase cervical inflammation. This predisposes most women into developing cancer later. And about breast cancer, it is the commonest cancer for women in India. We are often told breast cancer is about genetics, the BRCA genes. Yes, genes are risk, but genes are not fate. Environment is the match. Inflammation is the oxygen. Let me break it down. Estrogen doesn't cause cancer. That means every woman should get cancer. But inflammation is present, it amplifies the risk. There are other risk factors also, including the genetics. But inflammation plays a very critical role in accelerating someone to get a cancer. Your fat cells don't just store energy. They secrete inflammatory cytokines. The more visceral fat around your belly, the louder your body's silent alarm. Obesity is not just about weight, but it is the fuel for the fire. Adipose tissue releases inflammatory cytokines. So obesity is not just about weight. Emotional stress, sugar cravings and sugar intake, chronic sleep deprivation all increase CRP or the C-reactive protein, a marker which I said is already increased in all the cancers. Endometrial cancer, as we discussed, it's again high in PCO women and obese women. But the real villain is again systemic inflammation. The uterus becomes a mirror of the metabolic chaos because fatty liver, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, all associated or risk factors for endometrial cancer are all inflamed states. Even in the ovarian cancer, inflammation plays a major role. Ovulation itself is an inflammatory event. The more lifetime ovulation occurs, the higher the risk, especially when there are no protective pregnancies or sometimes oral contraceptive pills which actually stop ovulation from happening. Breastfeeding, all this are protecting against breast cancer. But they actually, how do they do it? Because they prevent ovulation. Adding to all this, gut inflammation and toxin buildup will actually aggravate the chances if you are at a risk of having cancer. Colorectal cancers, this is not just a man's disease. It is rising very sharply among young women today. You know why? The digestive organ, the pipe, is no more just an organ. It is an immune system, a neuroendocrine hub, a mirror to inflammation. As I said, the maximum gut microbiome is in the gut. The microbiome in the body is in the gut. When the gut barrier weakens because of processed food intakes, pesticides, antibiotic use, constipation or stress, what happens? Toxins leak into the bloodstream. This is actually called as the leaky gut. Most people assume leaky gut is some kind of diarrhea, but this is metabolic endotoxemia or leaky gut. Colorectal cancers, a diet which is low in fiber, high on trans fats, refined oils, high fat diets, all these cause dysbiosis or overgrowth of pro-cancer bacteria. Constipation increases the contact time of these carcinogens with the gut. Alcohol, red meat, even any grilling actually will increase the risk of cancer. Processed meat. By processed meat, what I say is the bacons, ham, sausages. These are all processed meat. This is a proven carcinogen. Refined sugars damage the gut mucosa and create oxidative stress. All these are foods which can trigger inflammatory response and in turn increase the chance of developing cancer. What are the steps you can do to reduce the inflammatory stress and thereby inflammatory markers in your body? First and foremost, for any cancer prevention, when there is a vaccine, please opt for it. Gift your daughters also the cervical cancer vaccine shot. And every year or at least once in 3 years for your birthday, gift yourself a pap smear and a pelvic check. When your periods get over, on the 3rd or 5th day, do a monthly breast self-examination with your own hands. This is not a medical task. It is a ritual of connection to feel your body and to feel you're normal and feel complete. Mammograms after 40 should be celebrated and not delayed. Ultrasound abdomen every 3 years in case there is a family history of breast or genital cancer. Sleep like it's your job. 7 to 8 hours sleep actually reduces the CRP levels up to 30%. That is one of the most optimal indicators for longevity, for somebody to live long and healthier. Good sleep. Adding ginger, turmeric and tulsi, which are anti-inflammatory foods, into your diet helps. Eat omega-3 rich foods like flax seeds, walnuts, certain fishes like salmon, even the traditional matti or aila, what in Tamil what we call Indian mackerel. These are very, very high on omega-3. So this can be consumed. The anti-inflammatory diet is no longer just a wellness trend. It's a core pillar of precision medicine, longevity research, and chronic disease prevention. Leading institutions like Harvard, Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, and Stanford's Precision Health Program have contributed significantly to refining this dietary model. There are many evidence-based anti-inflammatory diets. Like you might be very well know about the Mediterranean diet. Likewise, there is a DASH diet, there is a low FODMAP diet, many other diets which are very strongly scientifically proven types and they are used for certain specific indications. It is not a universal diet, but this is called precision medicine and this helps you get the accurate kind of diet what suits your goals and your body. The above are the list of all the evidence-based anti-inflammatory diets currently being practiced. Common foods endorsed across all the protocols. They are all the wild and fatty fishes. As I said, salmon, sardines, the Indian mackerel, matti, aila in Tamil. They are more omega-3 rich. Berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, all the green leafy vegetables, turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, nuts like walnuts, flax seeds and chia seeds, fermented foods, broccoli and all vegetables, cold press oils like olive, flaxseed, coconut, peanut and sesame oil, green tea, matcha tea. The universal inflammatory triggers are sugar and high fructose corn syrup, seed oils like soybean oil, sunflower oil, palm oil, canola oil, ultra processed foods, artificial sweeteners, stress, sleep deprivation, and sedentary lifestyle. I didn't mention about alcohol, tobacco, smoking. These are also carcinogens. Plastics. So mind what you use. Now everybody is going to tell, oh my God, Dr. D, you are given an entire list which tells us to not eat anything. I'm detailing so much, not just to create awareness, but because we need a systems level change and high level of grounding in consciousness. With any of the quick commerce like Swiggy, Zomato, Zepto, Blinkit, we don't have to cook food at home or go out for shopping, nor walk. With this much convenience and transportation options like Rapido, Uber, we need not go walk again. We have made life so easy, so the next generation has to work so hard to live well and be healthy. This is applicable to all socioeconomic class. If you're poor and can't afford, still you choose alcohol and high sugary foods and ultra processed food. The middle class diet is high on starch. If you are affluent and educated, the lifestyle pressure of partying, eating out often, the so-called cool and trying out novel products hits your microbiome and metabolic health, even if you maintain ideal weight, hitting the gym. By following a perfect lifestyle and healthy diet, can I avoid cancer? No, you may not still, but you could do all that you can to prevent it. And when you are more connected to your body, you may be more aware to recognize something is not okay and may reach out for an early diagnosis. This can prevent number one thing, the complications of a massive procedure and a added chemotherapy or a radiotherapy. This can also prevent it being detected at a later stage where you are in a stage 3-4 diseases and the chance of recurrence and spread to the other organs is very, very high. You see, this isn't just about food. It's about how we have designed our daily lives to be more convenient but less conscious, to be less connected, to be more productive but less alive in our own bodies. We have to ask, is this modern or is this madness? Inflammation is not just in our cells, it is in our systems. So we need a systems level change. Just awareness will not help and solve the problem. The inflammation is shared, the damage is collective, but so is the healing. So if you're listening, ask yourself, what small ritual can I reclaim today? Not to be perfect, but to be present. Not to be pure, but to be in rhythm again. We do not need more medicines or supplements, but more memory of what we have forgotten to do, to cook, to walk, to eat together, to rest without guilt. Thank you so much for listening to the Feminine System podcast. Like, share, and subscribe, and let's make a systems level change.